Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're cracking open Adam Grant's hidden potential. And we're going to figure out, together, what it really takes to achieve something great. I think this one's going to shake up some of our usual ideas, right? It's not about being born a prodigy, but about the journey we all take to unlock the potential inside us, waiting to come out.
That's what grabs you about hidden potential, I think. It kind of flips the script on how we usually see success, We get so hung up on where someone starts, the talent they're born with, all the lucky breaks they get.
Right.
But what Grant's saying is, potential isn't that starting line. It's the whole distance you cover, how much you grow, how you handle the bumps along the way.
I like that it's a fresh way to look at it.
Yeah.
And Grant gets right to it, doesn't he? He opens the book with that story about the Raging Rooks.
Oh, yeah, the chess team. Right.
From Harlem.
Yeah.
They go up against this, elite private school, the kind that churns out chess champs.
Yeah.
The Raging Rooks, they win.
Which on the surface is a shock, right? They didn't have the same resources, the fancy coaching, any of that.
Exactly. And that's Grant's point, I think, your starting point. It's not destiny. It's the distance you're willing to go.
Yielding to travel, yeah.
Okay, now, we're not all aiming to be chess masters.
Right.
But I think anyone listening can relate to that feeling, going further than people expect. What I'm curious about is, what made the Raging Rooks so successful? Was it just pure talent?
See, that's where it gets really interesting. Grant brings in this research done by an economist, Raj Chetty. He was studying the long-term impact of, get this, kindergarten teachers.
Kindergarten teachers. Wait, how does that connect to hidden potential?
I know, right? It sounds out of left field. But stick with me. Chetty finds this wild thing, having a really experienced kindergarten teacher. Turns out that's a better predictor of a kid's future income than their early math and reading scores. And here's the kicker. Character skills, things like discipline, taking initiative, that grit to keep going, those were 2.4 times more important than test scores in predicting how much they'd earn later on.
Hold on. You're saying character, like who you are as a person, matters more than raw talent. That's kind of mind-blowing.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? And it sets up Grant's next big idea perfectly. Character isn't some fixed thing like a moral code you're stuck with. It's a set of skills. Skills we can learn, skills we can get better at over time.
Like you can practice being a better person, essentially. I love that idea. It means we're not just stuck with whatever traits we were born with.
Exactly. You have agency. And go back to the Raging Rooks, right? Their coach, Maurice Ashley, he wasn't some chess prodigy. He had to grind to become a grandmaster. And he flat out believes his character is what got him there. And he drilled that into his team, especially that discipline. When they were up against tough opponents or felt like giving up, he taught them to manage their emotions, to think long-term, to never throw in the towel.
So it wasn't just chess moves they were learning. It was how to be resilient, how to get back up when you're knocked down, how to keep pushing even when it's hard.
You got it. And those skills, they're useful anywhere. Chess, business, just being a better person, it all applies.
This is really hitting home for me. But I bet some people listening are thinking, okay, inspiration's great, but how do I actually use this stuff in my life?
That's the great part about hidden potential. Grant doesn't just leave you hanging with feel-good stories and research. He gives you actual tools, strategies you can put to work. Like, he talks about setting up a committee of judges to give you feedback on your work.
Oh, interesting.
But not just any feedback. You ask them to rate your work 0 to 10. Then you ask, how do I get closer to a 10?
I like that. No more vague feedback, you get a clear target.
Exactly. Specific, actionable advice to help you move forward.
It's funny, we often think of success as this straight line, always moving up. But Grant seems to be saying that's not really how it works.
You're right on the money there. He has a whole section busting the myth of linear progress. He compares it to climbing a mountain. Sometimes you got to go down to find a better route up. And sometimes that means being uncomfortable.
Wait, hold up. Aren't we always told to stay in our comfort zone?
That's where a lot of us trip up. We think comfy equals progress. But Grant's arguing real learning, real growth, it happens when you push past that comfy boundary. He even uses Steve Martin as an example, the comedian. Steve Martin hated writing, but he forced himself to do it. And it ended up making his stand-up way stronger.
I get that. It's like that saying, no pain, no gain, right? But it's not about pushing yourself till you break. It's about finding those challenges that make you stretch, that give you a new perspective.
Exactly. Grant even talks about this wild idea called social skydiving. It's all about purposely putting yourself in awkward social situations as a way to learn a new language fast or pick up some new skill. Imagine you show up in a new country, instead of sticking to basic phrases, you bust out in song, or you start sharing super personal stories with complete strangers.
Whoa, that takes guts. But I can see how to make you learn quick and get comfortable with messing up.
Exactly. And that brings us to another big idea. Grant digs into embracing imperfection. He talks about Tadao Ando, this world-famous architect, known for these amazing buildings made out of, ready for this, rough concrete.
Rough concrete. Wait, wouldn't an architect want everything smooth and perfect?
That's what's so cool about Ando. Before he was an architect, he was a boxer. And he learned to be okay with things not being perfect. In the ring, you're going to get hit. You can't dodge every punch. And that idea, he brings it to his buildings. He embraces the flaws in the concrete, the rough texture. He even calls it intricate roughness.
So instead of hiding the flaws, he makes them part of the design.
Exactly. He'll smooth the concrete so it's soft to the touch, but he keeps those flaws visible. He even links it to this Japanese aesthetic called wabi-sabi, finding beauty in what's imperfect, the temporary, unfinished nature of things.
That's deep. It's like a reminder that perfection is often an illusion, and sometimes the flaws are what make something unique and beautiful.
Think about how that applies to our lives, right? How often do we get stuck chasing perfection, trying to reach some impossible ideal? And it ends up paralyzing us, makes us feel discouraged.
Oh, all the time. I think we've all been there. What I love about this perfectly acceptable idea is it takes the pressure off. We can be okay with our flaws, learn from our mistakes, keep moving even when things aren't perfect.
You got it. That's a big part of unlocking your potential. Letting go of that need for perfection and seeing the beauty in what's good enough and what's perfectly acceptable.
This whole conversation is really making me think about how I approach learning, how I see growth. It's not about being the most talented or the most perfect. It's about those character skills, pushing past your comfort zone, embracing the journey, even the messy parts.
And that's really just the start. Grant goes on to explore so much more in hidden potential, from shaking up how systems work to the power of working together, really smart. But one thing's clear. This book is full of insights that can help us unlock that potential hiding inside each of us and build a world where everyone has a real chance to thrive.
I'm hooked. I can't wait to keep going with hidden potential. But before we dive back in, I got to remind everyone about our One Book a Day YouTube channel. That's where you can find even more summaries and insights from awesome books like this one.
Definitely subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're ready to go deep on hidden potential yourself, we'll have a link to buy the book on Amazon in the show notes.
Stay tuned, because in part 2, we're going to explore how to spot those uncut gems, the people with tons of potential that often get overlooked, and how to create systems that help them shine.
See you soon.
We'll be back.
Welcome back to our deep dive into hidden potential.
Part 2.
Last time, we got into those key character skills, how important it is to get out of your comfort zone, and even finding the beauty in imperfection.
Lots to think about already.
Now, let's shift gears a bit. How do we actually spot those hidden gems? The folks with tons of potential that might get missed by the usual ways we measure success.
This is where it gets really interesting for me. I mean, we've all been through those job interviews or trying to get into college. It feels like it's more about weeding people out than finding what they're good at.
It's a real problem. Grant actually starts the section with a statistic that blew my mind. Ready for this? Work experience is a terrible predictor of job performance.
Wait, really?
It's true. And when you think about it, it makes sense. Someone could have 20 years of experience, but it might be the same year repeated over and over. It doesn't necessarily mean they've learned new stuff or gotten better at anything.
So someone could be stuck in a rut, basically.
Right. And Grant's argument is those traditional interviews, they're flawed. They're too focused on what you've already done, your past achievements, instead of looking at how you could grow in the future.
So if work experience isn't always a good indicator, what should we be looking for? How do you spot those hidden gems?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Grant tells this great story about Jose Hernandez. Dreamt of being an astronaut, but NASA kept rejecting him. He had a solid engineering background, a clear passion for space.
But it wasn't enough.
They kept saying no. What they missed was Hernandez's potential for growth. They were so fixated on candidates who'd already done amazing things that they missed someone with the drive to overcome any obstacle and blow past expectations. And guess what?
He made it.
Hernandez did become an astronaut, proving that those traditional metrics, they don't always tell the whole story. Sometimes they miss the real gems.
Okay, that's a great story. It shows why it's important to look beyond those basic qualifications, but how do we actually do that? How do we design systems that are looking for potential, not just past performance?
Grant suggests looking at something he calls grade point trajectory. Basically, it's the rate of improvement over time. Instead of just looking at your final GPA, what if we looked at how much you improved along the way? That tells us a lot about your willingness to learn, how much you can grow.
So it's about the journey, not just the destination.
You got it. And it makes me think about all those late bloomers out there, the people who maybe didn't excel right away, but have this incredible potential just waiting to be tapped.
We need to give those folks a chance, for sure.
Absolutely. We need systems that let those late bloomers shine. One of the coolest examples Grant gives is this call center in Israel called Call Yakul. They totally flipped the script on how hiring is done.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What do they do differently?
First off, they only hire people with disabilities. And they've built their whole interview process around focusing on what the candidates are passionate about and giving them multiple chances to succeed. They even let people bring a partner or even a pet to the interview for support.
Hold on, a pet at a job interview?
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? It shows they get it. Traditional interviews can be super stressful, especially for people who don't fit the usual mold. So instead of trying to trip people up or make them feel bad, they want to give them a chance to show their strengths, their potential.
I love that. I bet it creates a much more engaged, motivated workforce.
Absolutely. It reminds us we need systems that let people shine, not just highlight their weaknesses.
So we've talked about seeing potential in individuals, but how do we cultivate that potential in teams, in whole organizations?
Grant argues one of the biggest roadblocks to innovation is the traditional corporate ladder. It gives way too much power to one person, your boss, to make decisions about your growth, your advancement. It creates a bottleneck where one person's opinion can kill a great idea.
It's like a system designed to stifle creativity and prevent those hidden gems from ever being discovered.
Exactly. What Grant suggests is creating a lattice, a structure that allows for multiple paths to the top and encourages people to work together across different levels and departments.
So instead of having one gatekeeper, you have a more open, interconnected system where ideas can flow freely and potential can be nurtured from all directions.
You got it. It allows for more diverse perspectives, more chances to collaborate, and ultimately a better shot for those hidden gems to be discovered and given the chance to grow.
This is all really inspiring, but I can't help but wonder how these ideas apply to something like education. We've all heard about those high-performing education systems in countries like Finland. What are they doing differently that allows their students to really thrive?
That's a great question. And Grant does look at Finland's system in the book. He highlights a few key things that contribute to their success.
Like what? Spill the tea.
Well, first off, they have huge respect for teachers. Teaching is a highly valued profession in Finland, and teachers are given a lot of freedom to design their curriculum and tailor their teaching to each student's needs.
That's so different from the standardized testing culture we have in a lot of the U.S. It sounds like they're focused on nurturing a love of learning, not just teaching to the test.
Exactly. And they also really prioritize early childhood education. Finnish kindergartners, they spend most of their time playing, with only a small part of the day dedicated to formal lessons.
Wow, that's amazing. So they're focusing on developing those social and emotional skills, not just cramming academic content into their heads.
Right. And research shows that this approach actually leads to better learning outcomes in the long run. When kids are given the space to play, to explore, and learn at their own pace, they develop a much stronger foundation for future learning.
This is really making me rethink some of my own assumptions about education. I think we often rush kids into academic learning without giving them enough time to develop those essential skills.
It's a common trap. We think pushing kids harder and faster will get better results. But as Grant shows throughout the book, it's often the opposite. It's about creating the right conditions for growth, nurturing those character skills, and embracing those moments of discomfort that ultimately lead to real learning.
This has been an amazing deep dive into hidden potential so far. We've talked about how to spot potential, how to rethink our systems, and even learn from inspiring examples like the Chilean miners and those Finnish schools.
It's been a journey.
But I'm really looking forward to hearing more about how we can apply these ideas to our own lives and become better learners ourselves.
And that's exactly what we'll be exploring in the final part of our deep dive. We'll be talking about how to use these principles to unlock our own potential, create systems that help everyone grow, and ultimately make a positive difference in the world around us.
I can't wait. See you in part 3. All right, welcome back for the final part of our deep dive into hidden potential.
The grand finale.
We've uncovered a ton of great ideas, from spotting those hidden gems to rethinking how our systems work to being okay with imperfection. But now I'm really wondering, how do we take all this and actually use it in our own lives?
It's a great question.
It's one thing to admire those inspiring stories, but another to actually walk the walk.
You're right. It's not enough to just get it in your head. You got to find ways to weave these ideas into how you live day to day. And that's where Grant's Actions for Impact come in. He gives us a whole toolkit of strategies, exercises to make these ideas actionable.
Okay, I'm all in. What are some of those takeaways, the things we can start using today?
Well, one of the most powerful ones is to turn practice into play. Remember how we talked about deliberate play earlier? It's about finding ways to make building those skills fun, something you actually enjoy. Instead of dreading practice, you look forward to it.
That makes me think of Steph Curry and those crazy drills he does with his coach, Brandon Payne. It looks more like a game than practice.
Exactly, and that's the key. By turning it into a game, Curry makes it more fun, and he develops those incredible skills that make him such a beast on the court.
Okay, that's cool for athletes. But what about something like learning a new language or getting good at playing an instrument? It's not always easy to make that stuff feel like play.
True, but there are ways to make it more engaging. Grant suggests setting up fun challenges for yourself. Like, try to have a conversation with a native speaker, even if you only know a few words. Or try to play a Bach piece on a snare drum.
Oh, I like that. It's about pushing yourself, but in a way that's exciting, playful, not scary or overwhelming.
Right.
And speaking of pushing ourselves, what about those times when we feel stuck? Like we've hit a wall and just can't seem to make any progress.
That's where Grant's advice on taking the roundabout path comes in. Remember R.A. Dickey, the baseball pitcher who had to unlearn his old way of pitching to master the knuckleball?
Yeah, he had to go back to basics before he could really level up.
He had to take a step back to move forward in the end.
That story really stayed with me. It reminds us that sometimes the most direct route isn't always the best.
Exactly. Sometimes when you're stuck, it might be time to look at your approach, try something totally new, maybe even find new mentors who can give you a fresh perspective.
It's like Grant says, when you hit a dead end, maybe it's time to turn around and find a new path. I think that applies to so many areas. Our jobs, our relationships, even how we grow as people.
I agree. He also talks about the importance of having multiple guides. Don't just rely on one mentor. Get advice from different people who've taken different paths, who think differently than you, people who can challenge your assumptions, push you to see things in a new way.
That's so important. It's easy to get stuck in our own little bubbles, surrounded by people who agree with us all the time.
Right, but sometimes the best advice comes from the people who disagree, who help us see things from a different angle.
Makes sense.
And finally, let's not forget about the power of bootstrapping, both individually and as a group. Remember the Golden 13, those black Navy officers who had each other's backs and proved everyone wrong?
Yeah, their story is all about resilience and the power of support.
They knew they were stronger together. By sharing what they knew, by supporting each other, they could overcome anything. That's something we can all learn from. Whether it's starting study groups, joining support networks, or just finding ways to work together, we can all benefit from tapping into the collective wisdom and experience around us.
This has been an incredible journey, really. I feel like I have a whole new way of thinking about potential, not just in myself, but in everyone.
That's what Grant does best. He pushes us to see past those surface judgments and to see the hidden possibilities in ourselves and in everyone around us.
And he doesn't just stop there. He gives us the tools to actually unlock that potential and to build a world where everyone has a chance to thrive, to achieve something amazing.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's been a pleasure diving into these ideas with you.
Same here. And to everyone listening, we hope this deep dive has sparked some new ideas for you and inspired you to tap into your own hidden potential.
Don't forget to check out the show notes for links to Adam Grant's book and to our One Book a Day YouTube channel.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.